Hi, it's Friday, October the 18th, and I continue to read and wonder my way through the Book of Deuteronomy. Today we're in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 to 20, basically the second half of the chapter. Yesterday, the first half of the chapter, we heard Moses telling Israel that God is bringing you into a bounteous good land. A bit of a change from the previous chapter where you're going into this good land, and if you don't follow all the commandments, all the ordinances, then God will utterly destroy you. The change now is you're coming into this beautiful land. Follow God's commandments, and you will enjoy it, and you will stay here a long time. Kind of the same message, but a softer pedal. Rather than focusing on the destruction, it's think about how much you're going to enjoy being here. So let's continue and see what happens. So it's Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 to 20. Take care that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. When you have eaten your fill and have built fine houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks have multiplied, and your silver and gold is multiplied, all that you have is multiplied, then do not exalt yourself, forgetting the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, an arid wasteland with poisonous snakes and scorpions. He made water flow for you from flint rock, and fed you in the wilderness with manna that your ancestors did not know, to humble you and to test you, and in the end to do you good. Do not say to yourself, my power and might of my own. Do not say to yourself, my power and the might of my own hand have gotten me this wealth. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, so that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your ancestors, as he's doing today. If you do forget the Lord your God and follow other gods to serve and worship them, I solemnly warn you today that you shall surely perish. Like the nations that the Lord is destroying before you, so shall you perish, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God. Okay, back to perishing. If you don't do what you're told. I've reflected on this a number of times in the last few days, obviously. There is a real desire by the author, the one who has Moses' voice here, real desire just to make sure you follow God's rules. That's the most important thing. In it, there's a couple other things happening. I have said before, I don't believe that this is actually Moses. This is someone claiming Moses' voice. I don't believe that these words are the ones spoken right at the end of the Exodus before they go into the Promised Land. I believe that this was written much later after we've come back from exile. The reason I believe that, it's in the texts. And at least for me, it's in the text. So, for instance, we heard, was it yesterday, day before? Anyway, very, very recently, in the last chapter or so, that you're coming into this land and you are going to take vineyards and houses that you did not build, and you're going to live in them, and you're going to have this livestock. In fact, it's going to happen slowly because it'd be the wild animals alone would just be too much for you. You're coming in where everything's already done for you and you're getting it all. You're being given it. So the idea is you are utterly destroying your enemies. I have a real problem with that. And therefore you're taking their houses and their livestock, and everything is all there for you. All you have to do is kill the people who are there. Not so much chase them out, kill them. And then you're getting all this great stuff. Well, that works in terms of how we view the end of the Exodus, right? They do. They go into Canaan and they take all of that. However, here, when you have eaten your fill and have built fine houses and live in them, when your herds and flocks have multiplied and your silver and gold is multiplied. So this is now, so when you've built up. Well, that would be true coming back from the exile. That would be true when you're reclaiming your land, because there has been devastation and now you are rebuilding, which I believe is the context for Deuteronomy, although it's framed as if it's the end of the Exodus. I think this is much later. And you see that come back and forth. So now it's when you build up. So that to me is one of the reasons I think this is later, because it wasn't about building up just a couple of chapters ago. Also, in this is, well, there's a sense of good and bad happening. God's in control of everything, right? We get that, and when bad things happen, it's because God is testing us, right? And we will pass the test by being faithful. So we're explaining the bad things that have just happened, right? For generations now, we have been oppressed, we've been in exile, all sorts of terrible things have happened to us. Not as bad as Egypt, no, at least as far as we're concerned here, but it's been really bad. Why? Well, because we're being tested, and as we've come back from exile and we're a little more cosmopolitan, we've got all these foreign gods. It's like, no, we have to get rid of those. That's the whole problem. You got to like your captors. You got to appreciate some of the things that they brought. No, get rid of all of that. That all was meant to test you, and you just passed the test, which is why you're back. But don't fail it again. So we're really trying very hard just to keep the focus, on being faithful here and now, following the rules, but also understanding that whatever happens, it's God doing it to us, because we are what's important to God. Nowhere in this is this idea that we were sent to test the Canaanites. We are here as a challenge to the Babylonians. There's none of that. No. This is all about us. They are actors in the play, but this is all about us. And we've had it good and we've had it bad, right? Again, in the context of this narrative, you're going to go into this land that is remember, it had figs and honey and pomegranate and everything, and bread you can eat without scarcity. It's going to be fantastic. That was just yesterday. Now we're being reminded, though, that it was God who led us through that horrible wilderness, right? An arid wasteland with poisonous snakes and scorpions, and it was dry. It was terrible. So we're being reminded things can be bad, things can be good. And if we keep God happy, if we're obedient to God, because that's what will make God happy, then we get the good things, not the bad things. Again, and that speaks of a very fundamental theology and understanding of the way the world works, right? Which is to say, we are obedient to God, and God likes our obedience, and God rewards us for our obedience. I have wondered about that in the past, about how healthy a relationship is that really, and that I don't think that is the relationship to which God aspires. There's an element of that always, of course, but that isn't the sum and total of our relationship. I think the piece from this today that does speak to me in particular, though, is right from the beginning. When you've eaten your fill and built your houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks have multiplied, your silver and gold is multiplied, and all you have is multiplied. It's like when you're doing really, really well, then do not exalt yourself, forgetting the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. So don't forget where you came from. Right? Don't look back and forget. Look back and remember. You're not there anymore, but you were once there. And you hear that quite often in Hebrew scriptures. Remember, you were once a slave in Egypt. I think there's a wisdom in that. Just to never forget how you got to where you are now. Don't forget how you started. Don't forget the journey that got you to where you are now. Don't ever forget that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then it goes the next step, and remember that it's God who's got you there. And I also like that, as much as I'm saying that the relationship between Israel and God, between us and God, doesn't simply have to be one of being patted on the head for total obedience. I think there's more engagement in a relationship. Nevertheless, we need to be cognizant of the fact that none of us are self-made. It always makes me kind of laugh when people say, I'm a self-made man. I did all this by myself. You go, well, no, you didn't do it all by yourself. Surely you had people help you along the way, but we buy this narrative of how great we are, and suddenly we're the greatest employee this company ever had, and we were the greatest innovator that ever had that, and we were the ones who thought, and if only we hadn't been cheated on it, because we are great. Instead of recognizing, no, we're all part of this great network of things. I think doesn't matter who, just an American celebrity though, just railing against what he called socialism, and the government, and government assistance to people is ridiculous. He never had anybody help him. He was a self-made man. He built it himself. Even when he was living in his car, living on food stamps, he picked himself up, and he's the one who put it all together. Nobody helped him. Well, excuse me. Did you hear about the food stamps? Because food stamps were a government thing, right? To help you. Acknowledge that. Whether that's indebtedness or just recognizing that we're all part of this network. I'm a self-made man. I did it all myself. Did you go to school? Because where I come from as taxpayers, we all help pay for that schooling that you got, and that teacher, and that one teacher who believed in you, and that other teacher that challenged you, and like they helped shape you. And by the way, I'm pretty sure your parents had something to say. Some of it good, perhaps, or maybe some of it was in opposition to what your parents said or did. But the fact is, you're not entirely self-made. There's no such thing as self-made. You drove on roads that, again, taxpayers paid for. Your business succeeded because there were rules and regulations that you figured out, but you figured out how to succeed. But they were there for you to do that. There were protections in place. I know I sound like I'm now defending a socialist government. I am speaking kindly about any kind of government that tries to make it possible for everybody to succeed at some level. We aren't self-made, and it just doesn't happen. But then, even more than that, I would say here, and I would say it's meaningful to me. Not only are we not self-made, but God is part of it. You've heard me say before, I do very much believe in a persuasive God, a God who speaks to me and who invites me to make better decisions. And I often don't listen. And then I make poor decisions, and I look back and go, oh, why didn't I listen to you, God? And there are other times that I do. I listen to God. I take the risk that I feel God is calling me into, and it goes well, and I recognize that it was God who got me through that. It was God who was with me when I made the bad choice, and I lament it, and I was not alone in my lament. And I recognize that God's with me when I make the good choices as well. But it's very tempting in the midst of all the good choices to forget about God. When I've done the wrong thing and when I feel like I'm sitting in ashes, everything has fallen apart, I have no problem saying to God, God, I messed up, help me. I have no problem recognizing God's presence, sitting with me in my ashes, trying to plot my next way forward, trying to figure out what am I going to do, what's my next faithful step forward. I recognize God in that place quite readily. But in the midst of celebration, when everything has gone well, it's easy to forget about God. I make it a practice to seriously, as I go to sleep at night, to think of the things for which I am grateful in that day, and acknowledge those things with God, and thank God for those things. I do that because I think that's part of a healthy relationship that I want to have with God. But I also do those things so that I remind myself that I didn't do this by myself. I remind myself that I'm not alone in the difficult times and in the joyous times. And so I do. I thank God for that moment, and the moments that will come from it. It's not about me. I didn't make that happen by myself. I often, because I'm a faith group leader, a religious community, I'm a leader, I often get credit for what goes on in my faith community. Oh, it's such a great place. You're obviously such a good ministry because look how wonderful all these people are. And I'm like, that isn't me. People come and say, I really appreciate the time you spent with me because I've figured out this and that, and I really owe you so much because now I get it. And I'm really glad that I was able to be part of that. So, but that's really, again, that's not me. That's you and God. All I have done is try to facilitate you talking to God, you listening to God, you recognizing God. That's my best role, is to help you do that, but you do it, not me. And whatever miraculous thing that has happened in your life, whether it's a tiny miracle or a big miracle, but whatever change, whatever transformation has happened, I didn't make that happen. You and God worked on that together. God made that happen. You were open to it. God made it happen, not me. And that's important, because I do know others who don't do that, and they begin to think that they did it. They are suddenly the miracle workers that fixed everything. I am such a great minister. Here are the people that I have healed. You go, whoa, heal's a strong word, don't you think? I mean, even the apostles recognize it's the Spirit that heals. It's God that heals, not the apostles. And they are very full of themselves and are convinced how great they are. I think I am a good minister, but it's not me that does that. No. The thing I do best is get out of the way and allow you to connect with God, or the community to express God, like all of those things. That my job is to help facilitate, but to get the heck out of the way. It's not about me. Because here's the thing: if it is about me, when the miracle doesn't come, the one that's expected, that's my fault. When it falls apart, if I'm the one who married you, okay, so I officiate your wedding, we met, I wrote a lovely wedding for you, I married you, and I'm so proud of the work I did. If you get divorced, I guess that's my fault too, because obviously I didn't marry you very well. If I'd done it properly, you wouldn't have gotten a divorce, right? Nope. I was present. I officiated. You married each other. God married you. All depends on how you view that marriage. But not me. Which I don't abdicate responsibility. I play my role, but it's not about me. That's what I hear in this. When things are going really well, don't forget about God. It's so tempting to say, yeah, look what we've done. Look what we've built. That would be the temptation as Israel's rebuilt. Look what we've done. But it is God who helped us do that. Now, I can even hear me and I want to challenge me, go, yeah, okay, Norm, but you've already said that you struggle with this theology that everything that happens is absolutely God's will all the time. That everything that happens is God trying to teach, Norm or Israel or us, whatever, a lesson. Can't just random things happen. Yes, I do think that there is some chaos. I think random things do happen. And God is with us through that. So therefore, I would argue against myself. So therefore, there are some things that happen, good things that we don't say, well, no, God did that. It may not have been me, it may not have been God, it might have just been, it happened. It also rains on the unjust. It's an old proverb. Good things happen to bad people just because they do. Good things happen to everybody, and it's not always necessarily a connection. Maybe there's a place for that, but for me, if I keep God in it, I keep my own ego down, and I keep myself connected to the one who is with me in the highs and therefore in the lows. So I need to keep that connection. Whether I can sustain that as a philosophical argument, a theological argument, when combined with my appreciation that stuff just happens sometimes, I don't know. I just know how I feel in this moment. I have lots of friends and whatnot who sort of roll their eyes when an athlete, having scored the big touchdown, the big goal, having won the big gold medal, whatever, they just look up and they go like, oh, I give that to God. I give this victory to God. People go, oh, for God's please, really? Stop it. I get them trying to live out this, right? Don't forget how you got here. And don't get so full of yourself that you begin to believe that you are self-made. So in your victories, yes, recognize God. In your failures and difficult times, recognize God. God's with you through all of those things. Because ultimately, I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you for letting me extrovert my way through all this, by the way, because it's now hitting me that the more I become a self-made man, the more isolated I am, the lonelier I am, the more the universe will rest on my shoulders. Because if I am isolated and disconnected from everybody else because of my success, it's a happy thing, right? But I'm now disconnected from everybody else, then the world does become about me and only about me. And when the world is only about me, oh, that's an awesome, horrific weight to bear. A terrible, terrible. No, I can't bear that weight myself. So I need to stay connected to God. I need to stay connected to others. And I can do that by following these rules. Absolutely I can. But I can do them also by remembering how I got to be where I am and knowing that I'm not self-made. I did it with the help of a community of folk. They might have even known how much they helped me. But they did. And I did it with God. Yeah, I'm going to leave it right there. That's enough of me. So, anyway, I hope there's something in my ramblings today that's of meaning to you. And if not, well, thanks for your patience. And if so, I hope it gives you something to wonder about today. So I'm going to just simply offer prayer, and we'll move on, shall we? Let us pray. Loving God, thank you. Thank you for being with us in triumph and in failure, in joy and in grief, in knowledge and in wonder. Thank you for the way that your voice emerges as we listen for voices other than our own. Thank you for the way your word is heard when we ask questions and listen carefully to the answers. God, we thank you for all the ways that you are with us. And we ask that as we hear your word, we are drawn to your word and that we grow in faith. We pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, through the Holy Spirit. Amen. So that's enough of me today, but I hope to see you. Well, it's the weekend, isn't it? Yes, I hope to see you on Monday. Until I get to see you, God bless you. Please know that God sees you, knows you, and loves you. You're not alone. Even though sometimes great moments as we revel in them can sort of detach us, and horrible moments as we struggle can seem to detach us, we are not alone. God is with us. God is with you. God's love comes to you to be part of the celebration, to bring light to the darkness wherever you are. But God's love doesn't just stay with you, it actually moves through you. That's what it is to be blessed. Not only does God see you, but others see God in you. So God bless you. Thank you for being who you are, and we'll see you on Monday. God bless.